He was one of the longest-reigning popes in history, and also one of the most surprising. Vincenzo Gioacchino Raffaele Luigi Pecci, elected pope in 1878 under the name Leo XIII, ascended to the papal throne at 68 years old. At a time when a transitional pontificate was expected, he instead gave the Church 25 years of clear-sighted, reforming leadership, deeply attentive to the modern world. The Pope of the Workers, some called him. But he was also the Pope of philosophy, dialogue with science, and subtle diplomacy. His thought developed in an era marked by great changes: the birth of socialist parties, industrial expansion, the first crises of capitalism. And it was in this context that, in 1891, he published his most famous encyclical, Rerum Novarum, a text that today we might call revolutionary. For the first time, a pope took a clear stance in favor of the dignity of labor, the right of workers to form associations, fair wages, and the necessity for the state to intervene against social injustices. It was an unprecedented opening towards the working classes, without ever falling into materialism or class struggle. A delicate balance, which Leo XIII knew how to maintain with intelligence. But his vision went beyond the social question. Leo XIII was a great promoter of Thomistic philosophy. At a time when modern thought seemed to set aside metaphysics and faith, he wanted to revive St. Thomas Aquinas as a guide for Catholic thought. Not out of nostalgia for the past, but because in that synthesis between reason and faith, between science and theology, he saw a powerful weapon to face the cultural challenges of his time. He reopened studies on the classics, encouraged the founding of libraries, promoted historical research on ancient documents. For him, the Church had to speak to the modern world not with fear, but with preparation. In his way of being pope, Leo XIII combined rigor and diplomacy. He loved sobriety, spoke clearly, and above all, was not afraid to negotiate. During his pontificate, he reopened contacts with various governments, trying to defend the rights of Catholics in increasingly secular states. He knew that the direct power of the Church was diminishing, but he sensed that its influence could remain strong if it knew how to speak to consciences. He died in 1903 at 93 years old, leaving a legacy difficult to summarize in a few words. He was the Pope who laid the foundations for the social doctrine of the Church, the first to truly speak to modern times, the pontiff who showed that even in the decline of temporal power, spirituality, reason, and the Word could still change the course of history. An elderly pontiff, but with a surprisingly young vision. And today, more than a century later, many of his thoughts still speak to our present.